Good morning. Welcome to this beautiful setting that I enjoy being a part of. I love doing this outside whenever I can. Good morning, Debbie. Welcome this morning. There's my mom, ever so faithful. Claudia, good morning. Wendy, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Janisa. Wow, you guys are just like clockwork. Barbara, welcome this morning. Kim. It does my heart well to see all of you, these names coming into the live stream. Kyle Myers. Hey, welcome this morning, Kyle. Steve Hauser, ever faithful. Lori Cares, good morning. Yeah, Kyle, welcome. All the way from the East Coast. Suzanne, Carmen, Caleb. Did you have a good birthday yesterday, Caleb? Did you do anything fun? Good morning to you. Oh yeah, is my volume low? I can move you closer. I just didn't want you to have to deal with my mug and all its imperfections. Quite so close to the camera. So hopefully the sound is better. Keith, good morning to you. Oh, maybe my signal here isn't as good as it has been other mornings. Good, I'm glad you enjoyed your birthday, Caleb. So I want to welcome you this morning. It's 7:02 and we are here to rejoice in a new day. And I'm sorry I'm distracted momentarily. The turkeys over here strutting on this open hillside, and there's no hens around, but that doesn't stop them from strutting, puffing up and fanning those tail feathers. Morning, Lori, I see you there. Alyssa Fine. I love just watching them. And if you've ever been close to turkeys when they're strutting, they're doing it really for each other. They do it to impress the hens, but there's no hens around here. But they do it to impress each other too. It's the pecking order that they're trying to figure out. And but they make different sounds. It's referred to as drumming and spitting, and when they're strutting. And if you've heard them do it, it's actually it's pretty interesting sound. This low boom that comes out. Hey, good morning, Richard. There's like this dome, you know, when they like puff up with air and kind of force it out to make this low drumming sound, and they drag their wings on the ground. In fact, if right now, if you just walk around right in front of the office at the church building, you can see scratch marks, long scratch marks all around the parking lot. There, I was noticing this yesterday. That's where they're dragging their wings as they strut. So it's just an interesting thing that's really fun to watch. They're doing it right down here. Actually, they've just wandered back up over the hill, so I can't see them anymore, or else I would just show you. So we are in Psalm 118 today. Today is April 28th, so our corresponding Psalms, one of them was 118 this morning, so we're going to jump into there. So if you have your Bible, open up to Psalm 118. We won't cover the whole Psalm. I'm going to draw one part of this Psalm out and talk about it a little bit just for our devotional thought today. Sierra, good morning. Do you have any of the kiddos with you? Do you have a quiet home as you're looking at this live stream? I highly doubt you have a quiet home. I think you have early risers there. But welcome this morning. We're in Psalm 118. And just to kind of set some of the context for Psalm 118, it is believed that this is a post-exilic psalm. What that means is Israel has already been disciplined by God because of disobedience, and they were carried off in exile. First, the northern kingdom carried off by Assyria, and then the southern kingdom, Judah, carried off by Babylon. We know that Old Testament story. But God, who is their faithful Father, after that 70 years of exile, brought them back into the land. So it's believed that Psalm 118 is reflective of them having been brought back into the land. The temple or the city walls have been rebuilt by this time, and likely the temple itself is under construction to be rebuilt. And so this is one of the Psalms of Ascent. Good morning, Brittany. I see you there. So, yeah, Sierra says that many have joined the live stream in their home. So welcome, kiddos. Good to see you all as well to be a part of this. So this is one of those Psalms where they're coming. So 3 times a year, Israel is compelled, the people of Israel are compelled to come to Jerusalem. It's their triannual pilgrimage 3 times a year to worship in the temple. They do it at Tabernacles, Passover, and I can't remember the third one off the top of my head. I've said this so many times. Anyway, there's 3 times. It'll come to me at some point, maybe. And so Psalm 118, they're coming back into Jerusalem, and they're coming up to the walls of the city and through the gate, and they're singing praise and blessing and recounting God's goodness and so on as they do this. So the psalm opens up, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever." I won't read everything, but I'm just going to grab a couple things. Verse 5, "Out of my distress I called to the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free." This is one of those references to they were formerly in exile. And they've been brought home, so it becomes a part of their songs as they praise God for his deliverance. And so, "Out of my distress I've called upon the Lord. The Lord is on my side." Verse 6, "I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look in triumph on those who hate me." And as they recall their time in exile, some references here. Verse 13, "I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength. My song has become my salvation." Verse 17, "I shall not die, but I shall live and recount the deeds of the Lord. The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death." So they're looking back on this disciplinary time in their history and how God has rescued them, delivered them. They're putting their trust in God afresh. And they're coming to the gates of Jerusalem. There's a reference to the gates. I think it may be later in the psalm. Yeah, it is. And, no, it's right here in verse 19. So as I'm getting to the point that I want to make here in a moment. Verse 19, "Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter through them and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous shall enter through it." So they're rejoicing in the literal fact that the walls have been rebuilt. The gates that they used to come through prior to the fall of Jerusalem are now rebuilt. They're able to come in and rejoice in what God has done. And here's the part of the psalm that if you've read this already today, you'll recognize. We read it every year in association with Jesus, because this is becomes a messianic psalm. Verse 21, "I thank you that you have answered me and have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And I think in their context, the stone could likely be a reference to Israel herself. That God, though that stone was rejected by the nations around them, and God allowed them to be carried off into captivity, now God has brought them back and firmly planted them, and maybe even these words kind of for them as they come into the gates of Jerusalem, they're seeing the temple that's likely being rebuilt, post-exilic temple. They're seeing these massive stones being stacked upon one another to rebuild the temple, and it just evokes these sentiments like, man, the stone that the builders rejected has become the capstone. Israel, out of Israel will come salvation, because Israel serves the one true God. So this psalm points to, in the New Testament writer's perspective, to Jesus. Jesus was willing to undergo suffering, to be rejected, for the sake of becoming the salvation for all who would place their faith in him. So I want to talk about discipline for a second, because this is the context of the psalm. They make reference to this several times, that I was pushed to the point of falling. The Lord disciplined me severely. And I want to say this as it applies to our current situation and the difficulties that are a part of that, as I believe very well it's easy to see this is the discipline of God. So before you think that God is punishing us because of something, that's not what I mean. So think about discipline. Discipline, we immediately associate it with correction and punishment. But we understand that discipline is a much broader term from that, and if we're trying to be more precise in our understanding of it, discipline is more of an alignment with what we ought to be as people. So if we're looking at that definition, especially from the perspective of a believer we're aligning our lives to the character and purposes of God, discipline is needed for us to do that. Why? Because there are forces that fight against that alignment. So let's think about those forces. In the case of Israel, in Psalm 118, the forces were temptation, and their straying from being aligned with God and his purposes, his character and purposes. And so discipline for them became God's corrective work to bring them back to alignment. But there's also voluntary discipline that we're all very aware of. We've all had to learn growing up as a part of becoming an adult, is that we learn to voluntarily push back against the resistance to align our lives to a particular characteristic or goal or purpose, right? My daughter Mackenzie is finishing her final week of her senior year of university. So this is a goal that was self-imposed. Nobody made her go to college, but she wanted to align her life to this particular purpose of going to college and graduating from college. College isn't for everybody, but that was the decision she wanted to do for her goals, and so it was a self-imposed discipline to align herself to this goal. And it was a 5-year experience. This is a long-term goal. You have to stay focused. You have to stay disciplined. There's lots of resistance for you to complete that goal. In my own experience, I went to college at 17, but I didn't get my undergrad degree till I was 31 years old, and I had 2 babies at home. I took a break in there because I got distracted from the goal. My goal was no longer to finish school, but it was to go into full-time Christian ministry. But then later I realized that, wow, school would be really helpful in full-time Christian ministry, so I went back and finished my undergrad in Bible. And so we see these examples of self-imposed discipline to align ourselves with a particular purpose and character, and that discipline by its very nature, you're pushing back against resistance. A third example of discipline is discipline through suffering. So what pushes against our alignment of our character and purposes of God is just when we encounter difficulties in life, suffering. And the reason I'm going to land here for a minute is because this is what Jesus did on our behalf. And it's a common experience for every single human being on the planet. We all suffer in various ways because we live in a fallen world. Our plans are thwarted. Bad things happen. And we have to endure suffering. But God redeems this suffering by calling it discipline, by saying, this is a resistance to your alignment to my character and my purposes, and it's going to help you be stronger. Everybody needs resistance to grow stronger in their focus and in their pursuit of a particular goal. That's why we call it discipline. It's not fun. No one likes it. Even the self-imposed discipline, we exercise or we diet We're trying to align ourselves to a particular goal and stay aligned. And so it's hard, right? It involves suffering at some level, and sometimes that suffering is not voluntary. It's not by choice. It's just things that happen to us, and God says, look at that as discipline as well. So I'm going to jump over to Hebrews for a minute as we kind of wrap things up this morning. Hebrews chapter 2, and coming back to Jesus. Jesus is our example, that Jesus himself suffered as it relates to his own discipline of staying aligned with the character and purpose of God. So I'm reading in Hebrews chapter 2, beginning with verse 10. It says, for it was fitting that he, referring to Jesus, for whom and by whom all things exist, in bringing many sons to glory, would make the founder of their salvation perfect through suffering. So I said that wrong in the beginning. He is actually in the context referring to God, and the founder of our salvation is Jesus. So let me read that again. In bringing many sons to glory, God should make the founder of their salvation perfect through suffering. So his perfection, his growing and learning is coming through suffering. For he who sanctifies and those, us, who are sanctified, all have one source. That is why he is not ashamed to call them brothers. And we've read, and then he quotes, we just read this psalm. I'll tell your name to my brothers. Oh, this is Psalm 22, if you remember this from a few days ago. Verse 14, since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise partook the same. Therefore he had to be made like his brothers. This is verse 17, in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest. For he himself has suffered when tempted. He is able to help those who are being tempted. So Jesus endured the suffering, this resistance against aligning himself to the character and purpose of God in his life, in going to the cross on our behalf. So Hebrews builds on this theme all throughout in proposing Jesus as example of one who has gone before us and showing us the way, and that way involves suffering. The people that are being written to in Hebrews aren't being disciplined because of some sin or rebellion against God. They are just enduring suffering for their faith in God. And so God is telling them, look at this as discipline, as a means of growth, as a means of a natural resistance to your aligning yourself to the purpose and character of God for your sake, so that you would become mature. And he continues to use Jesus as the example. Let's look at in chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely. Let us run with endurance. We must learn endurance. That's a part of discipline. We're learning to press forward despite the resistance. That's what endurance is. Lost my place. Run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus. He's our example. The founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated, he is rewarded at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility, the resistance that comes against you, against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. This is a part of discipline, endurance, that we press on toward our alignment with the character and purpose of God for the sake of God's glory, for the sake of our maturity. We all need to endure discipline in order to grow to become the people that God wants us to be. I'm going to continue reading in verse 7. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom the Father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which we all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have all had earthly fathers. We have this human example. We have all had earthly fathers who disciplined us as it seemed best to them. But God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So we think about discipline as a training of alignment. How we want to align ourselves with the character and purpose of God suffering, temptation, discipline comes and provides that pushback against us, and we have to develop those muscles of staying true to be aligned with the purpose and character of God, and we grow as a result. It yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness, the writer of Hebrews says. So, back to Psalm 118. The stone that the builders rejected, Jesus had to suffer and be rejected as a means of his own discipline, the pushback, but he stayed true to the alignment to the purpose and character of God and his mission to provide salvation for the world. We have to endure similar disciplines of pushback, rejection, suffering, self-imposed disciplines, so that we might grow and bear the fruit of righteousness in our pursuit of our alignment with the character and purpose of God. So all that to say, consider your life today. Reflect on what is it that's pushing back today, and how are we disciplining ourselves to hold steady the course of aligning our lives, our hearts, our minds with the purpose and character of God today? How are we using what would be an annoying resistance? Resistance is right now it's annoying, it's inconvenient, it's painful. We can look at this opportunity as discipline from God to say, this is your opportunity to grow. This is something that's pushing back against your alignment with my character and purpose. How are you enduring? How are you seeing this as a benefit, though it's painful? And that's my word of encouragement to you today. I hope that you can reflect further and just examine your heart. This is the whole purpose of this, that God is doing something supernatural in our hearts through our experience. What is he doing today? How is he, maybe you're dealing with a particular difficulty. We all are, in the sense of what's happening with the social distancing and sheltering in place mandate and the various frustrations that are associated with that. How can we turn that around and look at it as a sense of, this is God at work in my life to bring about his purposes in me today? How am I responding to that? How am I realigning myself with his purpose, his character, and how I respond to this today? So Lord bless you all, and I'm continuing to pray for you, and I hope that you stay encouraged to align yourselves, your thoughts, your heart, to the purpose and character of God. God bless you all.